All right, so where am I? I've jumped in a time machine. I've gone back to 1984. So this room is a replica inside Little Tokyo of like a mix-up, mash-up hybrid of Sleeve Masters, Cross Graphics, East Hills, where Greg Ardron was the pioneer and the powerhouse of it for many a year. So on this wall here, we've got a lot of OG original Flash that Greg drew, like it says here, like early in like 1984. So, you know, it's coming up to like it's 40 odd years old. So, and you can see a lot of this is production stuff that was redone. What's interesting as well is it's drawn on cardboard, but then it's on the back of beer boxes, like corrugated. We'll have a look here. It's on the back of that's a salt and vinegar chip packet box. So there's a lot of stuff that tattooers would innovate, and depending on how affluent or how close they had things, like some put it on the back of like hardboard or masonite, or Bainbridge board was another one. So Greg's choice of storage of his designs was either beer boxes, fish and chip boxes, salt and vinegar boxes, that sort of stuff. So what we got here is a selection of T-shirts, of merch that Sleeve Masters was known for. You know, here's the East Hills jacket. Here's a sign behind here of Greg when he worked out at East Hills out on the outskirts of Sydney. And what's important about that studio was it's where Bob Wood and Big Pete started in the late 50s. So it was a converted like chicken coop. The boys tattooed out the back of Big Pete's mum's house. And it was one of like the first 5 or 6 shops in the late 50s around Sydney. So this room's a collection of lots of stuff. Up the top, we've got the cross graphic signs that were hand painted by Greg. And this sort of predates the Sleeve Masters era. Then you can see up there, Triple M Rocks Sleeve Masters Tattoo Studio. So that sticker, like Triple M back in the day, was the biggest radio station in New South Wales and in Melbourne and probably Brisbane. So these iconic stickers, if you could get Triple M Rocks Melbourne or your business, you were killing it. So a great bit of marketing. Up the back here, we've got like the cross guns, Sleeve Masters logo. Here is actually 2 Sleeve Masters from Madonna. They used to tattoo a lot of people in the music industry. They didn't tattoo Madonna, but Greg did tattoo MC Hammer, amongst a few other notables over the years. Then we got a picture here of Dutchie, a Western Sydney legend, who Greg actually got his first ever tattoo from. Then sort of as we scan around the room here, we've got some of Greg's iconic Sleeve Master stuff. He went to the 1996 Tattoo Museum opening, annual Sydney Tattoo Show put on by ARM and the Lone Wolf MC, you know, Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs, Snaggletooth, Junkyard Dogs. And then here we have like certificates. So Greg was a prolific correspondent. He would write letters to tattooers all over the world. He would write articles for many different tattoo publications, trade magazines around the world as well. So here we've got the International Union of Tattoo Artists, Tattoo Club of Sweden, Association of Professional Tattoo Artists, Tattoo Club of Australia, Tattoo Club of Great Britain, Master Tattoo Artists League of Australia, South Australian Professional Tattoo Association, and the list goes on. Most importantly, and not the least, but we can't forget the PTAA, which Greg was the state rep of New South Wales for a very long time. The PTAA had been the guardians of the tattoo industry since the mid-80s, fighting against legislation, self-regulating, setting standards that weren't there before, like trying to lift the level of tattooing, and they're still doing an amazing job today. They'll be at the Sydney Tattoo Convention doing a lot of the judging. So what we've got here is sort of like a pseudo replica of Greg's workstation in the Sleeve Masters Cross Graphic Studio, and even later on East Hills. And then when Greg returned out to Mudgee, he always worked off one of these roller desks. So it was just the way it predated the modern day toolbox. So you could do your shift, you could just roll it down and hide everything there. Greg was one for trinkets, collecting everything, whether it be business cards, stickers, tattoo t-shirts, tattoo machines, like anything tattoo related. Greg was like such a fanatic. So I managed to collect a lot of this stuff after I formed a friendship with Greg. And a bunch of us would go out to his house in East Hills once a week, every 2 weeks, like myself, Gummy Johnson, Caleb Harrower, Will Brown. I took out a bunch of other tattooers, like Duncan's been out there, Todd Bailey, Mark Lonsdale. We took some Japanese guys out there, English guys, Lal Hardy's been there, Dave T. The list goes on. But it was like a mega and a mecca for us of just tattoo artifacts and of historical value. So here's just another selection of stuff that just tried to assemble and just sort of showcase and give people a vibe of what a tattoo studio looked like in the 80s or the 90s. So again, we've got over here Sleeve Masters Tattoo Studio. We've got the artists at the time. We've got Greg, Jeff Rhodes, Kathy Felton, Vanessa Ardren, Dave O, Jody, Fred Heinrich, Ken Adams. So this, I imagine, is late 80s, early 90s. Some real early work of Greg's from the early 80s, early mid 80s. You know, stickers again, got to have the collection. Some newspaper articles like Iron Horse magazine, Full Bore magazine. So before tattoo magazines existed, the only publication that would sort of show tattoo stuff were motorcycle magazines, or Tony Cohen had something in a magazine called Picture. It was like sort of like a 90s smut mag, and every week he would have a page called Tony's Tats Out. So that sort of predated, you know, tattoo magazines. Over here is just sort of a selection of photo albums of guys that used to work at the shop, and just little intricacies and trinkets, you know, Sleeve Masters, King's Cross filter, like cigarette packets. Like, the guys were non-stop at what they were doing. This, if anyone had been out to East Hills or Sleeve Masters, this is one of the many chalices that were used. You know, like old ink bottles, like Greg and that, they would all mix their own ink. So just obsessed by things. We've got here, this is a Frank Thompson tattoo machine donated to the PTAA for one of their conventions. You know, handcuffs, who knows what these were used for or where they came from. You know, white ink. I remember Greg telling me a funny story about white ink. They got raided by the cops in King's Cross at the studio, and like always up for wisecracks. So they had a pound of white pigment in the safe. So when the police made them open up the safe, they thought they'd hit the jackpot. It was a setup from the boys for the cops. So they're right there. They're going, "What's this?" You're like, "Oh, it's white ink." "No, it's not." You know, blah, blah, blah. They stuck their finger in, tried it, and then they got all titanium dioxide all through their mouth. So one for the tattoo crew back in the day. So many stories that will come out in the future. We're going to dive deeper into all of this stuff and do some more stuff with with Max, with Jeff, and other notables from that era. All right, on this side behind me is ode to Jeff Rhodes and his workstation. Jeff and Greg were like partners in crime forever and a day. They worked opposite each other. They worked the same shifts, 4 till daybreak regularly. Many a Thursday, they just went straight through till a Sunday. So this is a little replication of Jeff's side. We've got like some honorary membership at the Tattoo Club of Japan. We've got like awards he's won at the PTA convention, the Sydney Tattoo Show. We've got early business cards of Jeff from Whyalla, some flash from Whyalla, certify that he's achieved the qualification of Sleeve Master through Excellence of Tattooing in 1990. Certificates were huge, like I said. Another awards, like the merch is down pat, like lighters, tattoo machines, business cards. This was published in an international tattoo magazine. You know, all sort of little knickknacks and photos that tattoo artists would customize their workspace with. And then over here, we've got like a big selection of photos of mashups, some original stuff that used to stick on the wall, like a family album of Sleeve Masters, you know, Jeff, Greg, You know, the guys were like thick as thieves. Kenny, the swagman. Just a great era. Here, we've got a sign that used to hang in the shop. No, you can't go out the back. You can't stand here watching me. You can't ask questions. Your mate can't come in. I haven't got a light and I don't know where Billy is. Then in the other pub, we've got, if you want to drink piss, go find a pub. We're trying to work. So if you're not being tattooed, for fuck's sake, don't annoy us with stupid questions and constant interruptions. Leave us alone. Let us get on with it. A far cry from today. So again, this room is sort of like a bit of a time warp, and it's just, I like to bring people in here and show them how tattooing has evolved. All the characters I've mentioned and more from this era have helped push tattooing to where it's become today. There's an old saying that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and everyone I've mentioned in this room today are giants in my eyes, in my humble opinion, in the Australian tattoo industry. Bit of memorabilia in this room, like this here is one of Frank Thompson's homemade early foot switches. Legend has it, this was a hammer that Fred had or used or may not have used. Fred Heinrich, this is one of his tattoo machines, the Flying V. So yeah, like just some real cool stuff in this room. Behind me over here as well, just more of a mashup of some artwork of Greg in the 80s, and he had his own unique style. Here we've got some collection of a guy called Chris Chait, who worked at Sleeve Masters for a while. We've got a Sleeve Masters calendar. We've got some other articles that appeared in tattoo magazines. Up the side here, just more designs, you know, stuff resembling King's Cross. Here we've got, you know, the Grim Reaper with a syringe, Ticket to Hell. We've got a little thing here. Colours can be changed to your preference, so we're starting to accommodate the client a little bit more. Obviously a bit more of that and we'll do anything. More flash. Just here is like a little toolbox that Greg used to, you know, repair machines from. He was a machine builder. He was like, for me, one of the best all-round tattooers Australia's ever had. Coils, shims, washers, capacitors, the whole lot. And then here we've just got a little collection of tattoo machines. So, you know, this room is actually going to be taken down soon, and I'm going to transport it up to the Gold Coast, where I'm going to open a small Australian tattoo museum that's going to be open to the general public. So stay tuned for that. Probably be ready by the end of the year. Most importantly, on the floor, we've got a body here. So this is a body that came from some time that Jeff Rhodes spent over in America, in Long Beach, working at a shop over there. He came into work one day and someone had been shot in the studio the night before, so this was on the floor. So Sleeve Masters was like right in the heart of darkness, 80s and 90s, in the most wild area Australia had at the time, King's Cross. So Greg, the master of wisecracks and just a good time guy, decided it'd be a great idea to put it on the floor. And mate, I remember walking into that shop in about 1991 on my way driving up to Brisbane with a mate of mine. Coming from Melbourne, I thought, you know, I'd seen a little bit, St Kilda, the city, all the rest of it. But I remember hitting King's Cross on a Saturday night and just going, holy fuck. The walkways are chocker full of people. I remember walking into the shop and it was full, everyone's smoking, and just seeing this thing on the wall and just being like, wow. And, you know, I was tattooing then, but these guys were like my heroes and idols and like untouchable. So I just sort of had a look around and fucked off. But yeah, so this room, I love it. I put it together with Dan Rhodes, Jeff Rhodes, one of Jeff Rhodes' sons. Dan's an amazing tattooer and is very fortunate to work with Dan here for quite a few years. So this was one of our lockdown projects. So yeah, it's been a really good thing. It's sort of like MJ Forrest says, it's like the hidden gem of Sydney tattooing. It's not been open to anyone and everyone, but that is my goal, to do something similar to that up on the Goldie. And I intend to have the first exhibition up there, probably run for 6 months, will be this room, and then expand it because I've got a lot more stuff on it. Hope you enjoyed it. Check it all out. Thank you.